Swami Nityanamine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Vastratyare Shakarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Vastratyari Shakarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Nitai Gaura Hari Bo Hari Bo Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shishtai Gopinande, Hari Hari Bol. So thank you again, everybody, so much for this opportunity today to speak on a very nice topic, Lord Chaitanya's Principal Associates. I pray for all your blessings to do justice to this class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So to begin, we'll read from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 4, text 15. Evam gyatva kritam karma purvair api mumukshubhihi kuru karmaiva tasmatvam purvai purva taram kritam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore, you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. Purport. There are two classes of men. Some of them are full of polluted material things within their hearts, and some of them are materially free. Krishna consciousness is equally beneficial for both of these persons. Those who are full of dirty things can take to the lion of Krishna consciousness for a gradual cleansing process, following the regulative principles of devotional service. Those who are already cleansed of the impurities may continue to act in the same Krishna consciousness so that others may follow their exemplary activities and thereby be benefited. Foolish persons or neophytes in Krishna consciousness often want to retire from activities without having knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Arjuna's desire to retire from activities on the battlefield was not approved by the Lord. One need only know how to act. To retire from the activities of Krishna consciousness and to sit aloof, making a show of Krishna consciousness, is less important than actually engaging in the field of activities for the sake of Krishna. Arjuna is here advised to act in Krishna consciousness, following in the footsteps of the Lord's previous disciples, such as the sun god Vivishwan, as mentioned herein before. The Supreme Lord knows all his past activities, as well as those of persons who acted in Krishna consciousness in the past. Therefore, he recommends the acts of the sun god, who learned this art from the Lord some millions of years before. All such students of Lord Krishna are mentioned here as past liberated persons, engaged in the discharge of duties allotted by Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutade Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutade Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paschatya Deshadarine. So herein, the Lord is advising Arjuna to act according to the example of devotees who have gone before. He mentions particularly the sun god Vishwan. But we're very fortunate that 500 years before us, Lord Chaitanya appeared, and he set the perfect example of a pure devotee, as we've discussed previously. But we're also fortunate that along with Lord Chaitanya, his wonderful associates appeared as well in order to display the great spiritual variegatedness of devotional service. So today we're going to discuss the principal associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, namely the Panchatattva, in order to learn from their wonderful histories and relish their beautiful pastimes. So the Panchatattva refers to the five truths. The famous verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Mami Bhakti Shaktikam. Translation: I offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Krishna, who is none different from his features, as a devotee, devotional incarnation, devotional manifestation, pure devotee, and devotional energy. So Srila Prabhupada explains this verse very nicely in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya as follows, quote, Lord Krishna becomes manifest in five different features. Although he is one without a second, In order to serve 5 specific spiritual purposes, he becomes manifest in 5 ways. Such diversity is eternal and blissful in contrast to the conception of monotonous oneness. There is no difference between the energy and the energetic in regard to the Lord's appearance as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his 4 associates, Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Prabhu, Gadadhar Pandit, and Srivas Thakur. Among these 5 diverse manifestations of the Supreme Lord, as the Lord himself in his expansion, incarnation, devotional energy, and devotee, there is no spiritual difference. They are 5 in one absolute truth. For the sake of relishing transcendental flavors in the absolute truth, there are 5 diverse manifestations. These are called the form of a devotee, the identity of a devotee, the incarnation of a devotee, the devotional energy, and the pure devotee. Out of the 5 diversities in the absolute truth, the form of Lord Chaitanya is that of the original personality of Godhead, Krishna. Lord Nityananda is the manifestation of the first expansion of the Supreme Lord. Similarly, Advaita Prabhu is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. These 3, Chaitanya, Nityananda, and Advaita, belong to the category of Vishnu Tattva, or the Supreme Absolute Truth. Srivas represents the pure devotee, and Gadadhar represents the internal energy of the Lord for the advancement of pure devotion. Therefore, Gadadhar and Srivas, although on the Vishnu platform, are dependent, diverse energies of the Supreme Lord. In other words, they are not different from the energetic, but they are manifested diversely for the sake of relishing transcendental relationships. The whole process of devotional service involves a transcendental reciprocation of the flavors of the relationship between the worshipper and the worshipped. Without such a diverse exchange of transcendental flavors, devotional service has no meaning. So this is a nice way that Srila Prabhupada explains the Lord and all his different features. So when he says that the Lord, the first of the 5 forms is that of a devotee, he means Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is of course appearing as his own devotee. Um, the expansion um, of sorry, the identity of a devotee is his immediate expansion, Lord Nityananda, who is an incarnation of Lord Balaram. Then the incarnation of a devotee is that of Advaita Acharya or Mahavishnu or Sadashiva combined. The devotional energy is Gadadhar Pandit, who is Srimati Radharani, and the pure devotee is Srivas Thakur, who is Narada Muni. So the importance of the Lord appearing in all these different forms is that it represents the various relationships that one can have with the Lord in devotional service. As Srila Prabhupada explains, devotional service is not monotonous or boring, like that of the impersonal conception, where there is no such thing as devotional service because God does not have a personal form to those who believe in the impersonalist philosophy. Therefore, they have no way of rendering service to God. But in devotional service, there is a huge manifestations of ways that one can relate to the Supreme Lord. So many different types of ecstasy, so many different types of mellow, so many different types of tastes. And all of that makes the flavor of devotional service so relishable. So we're going to look a little closer at the members of the Panchatattva other than Lord Chaitanya, whose wonderful pastimes we've been discussing already in the last few weeks. And we'll start with Sri Nityananda Prabhu. So Nityananda Prabhu is the incarnation of Lord Balaram. And as Lord Balaram is the elder brother of Krishna in Krishna Lila, so in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, Lord Nityananda is his older brother. Lord Nityananda is the second body of Lord Chaitanya. Therefore, all other forms manifest from him. He is the supreme spiritual master of the entire universe, and he is the way that the devotee can access Lord Chaitanya and therefore Radha and Krishna. Lord Chaitanya Lord Nityananda is described as having garments that are the color of blue lotuses. He has a complexion that is like that of the rising moon. He has the most beautiful melodious voice that is constantly singing the holy names of Krishna. And he has a red stick that he carries that is that bestows benedictions on the devotees, but that is quite terrifying for the demons. He is also known as Avadut, which means that he is so absorbed in love of Godhead that his reactions are quite unpredictable in his deep ecstasies. So he appeared in Ekachakra Dam, and his parents' names were Harai Pandit and Padmavati Devi. His birth date is given as the 12th of February, 1473. He was, from the time of his childhood, most beautiful and completely absorbed in Lord Krishna's pastimes, so much that he drowned his entire village in ecstasy of love of God. At the age of 12, a traveling sannyasi, who is named as Lakshmipati Tirtha, came to his parents' home, and being enchanted with Nitai's devotion, he asked Harai Pandit, Nitai's father, if this beautiful child could come with him as a companion on his travels. Because of the Vaishnava etiquette, Harai Pandit and Padmavati Devi could not say no to the sannyasi, but because they experienced such great grief in separation from him, Harai Pandit passed away very soon after. Nitai went with Lakshmi Patitirtha throughout India, um, going to and visiting many of the wonderful holy places there, similar to how Lord Balaram had left during the Battle of Kurukshetra and had gone all over India also on pilgrimage. In the course of his travels, Nitai took initiation from Lakshmipati Tirtha, and he also encountered another one of his spiritual master's famous disciples, Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri and Nitai enjoyed each other's company, relishing love of Godhead together for many, many days. When Nitai finally went to Vrindavan, he enjoyed so much the pastimes of Krishna within the 12 forests that he spent a very long time there, awaiting the start of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan pastimes in Navadvip. When this blessed moment happened, after Lord Chaitanya returned from Gaya, completely intoxicated by love of God, Nitai then came to Navadvip. Lord Chaitanya was well aware that Nitai was present, but echoing the sentiments of separation, Nitai hid himself at the home of Nandanacharya. Lord Chaitanya was very eager to have the association of his beloved elder brother again, so he sent Haridas Thakur and Srivas Thakur to look for him, but they couldn't find him. Finally, Lord Chaitanya went himself, and the meeting between Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya was full of transcendental ecstasies. Lord Nityananda then started assisting Lord Chaitanya in his Sankirtan movement in Navadvip, and his mercy was um, flowing in waves across the entire place. He was delivering all kinds of persons, from the great sinners Jagai and Madai, and associating with wonderful personalities like Haridas Thakur and Raghunath Das Goswami. So we're aware of the pastime of the two rogues, Jagai and Madai, who were so decrepit that nobody could bring them to devotional service except Nitai. Even though they were so belligerent towards him, even injuring him in the process, and even though they had incurred the wrath of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by the mercy of Nitai, both of them were delivered. When Lord Chaitanya finally decided to take sannyas, Lord Nityananda went with him and then escorted him back to Shantipur, to the house of Advaitacharya, so that Lord Chaitanya could have the association of the devotees one more time, could get the permission of his mother, and then could settle his sannyas residence in Jagannath Puri, so that all the devotees would be able to get his association there in the future. So Lord Nityananda accompanied Lord Chaitanya on his first journey to Jagannath Puri, and on the way, he broke Lord Chaitanya's sannyas staff in that famous pastime, where Lord Chaitanya became very upset with him externally. Internally, the meaning of this is that it's only the lower kinds of sannyasis that carry dandas, but Nitai, thinking of Lord Chaitanya as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and even higher than the stages of Hamsa and Paramahamsa, felt that the Lord did not need to carry a sannyas danda. Internally, Lord Chaitanya agreed, and he never carried one again. When Lord Chaitanya went eventually to Puri, he instructed Nitai, Advaitacharya, and the other household devotees to go back to Navadvip actually and to continue their preaching there, while a few associates remained with him in Jagannath Puri. When Nitai went back to Navadvip, he gave up his avadut status and he entered the household alive. He married the two daughters of Suryadas Sarakel, namely Janava Devi and Vasudha Devi. Vasudha Devi had two children by Lord Nityananda, Veerachandra, who became Veerachandra Goswami after being initiated by Janava Devi, and her daughter's name was Ganga Devi. Lord Nityananda wound up his earthly pastimes by merging into the deity of Krishna known as Bankim Rai, which is a beautiful deity installed not far from Ekachakra. Then the third member of the Panchatattva is Advaita Acharya, and he is an incarnation of Mahavishnu and Sadashiva. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said, because he is non-different from Hari, the Supreme Lord, he is called Advaita, and because he propagates the cult of devotion, he is called Acharya. He is the Lord and the incarnation of the Lord's devotee. Therefore, I take shelter of him. Advaita Acharya appeared on the seventh day of the light half of the month of Magh in the year 1434, and his parents' names were Kuvera Pandit and Nabha Devi. They originally lived in the village called Navagram near Srihatta, but they later moved to Shantipur on the banks of the Ganges. He had two wives, Sita Devi and Sri Devi, and they are both manifestations of Yogamaya. He also had six sons, and among them Achyutananda became a disciple of Lord Chaitanya also. Advaita Acharya studied scripture under an eminent scholar named Shantacharya near the area of Shantipur, and this is how he got the title of Acharya as well. And before the appearance of Lord Chaitanya, he was the authority on scripture who was guiding all the other Vaishnavas in their devotional practices. They would all meet at Advaita Acharya's house and engage in discussions and relish on scripture and relish the holy name. And Lord Chaitanya's older brother Vishwarup used to attend these meetings. When Advaita Acharya's parents left their bodies, he went to Gaya to do their pin ceremonies. And then he also took the opportunity to do parikram of all the holy sites in India. When he went to Vrindavan, not only did he relish the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, just like Lord Nityananda did, but he also discovered the deity of Madan Mohan or Madan Gopal. He entrusted the worship of that deity to a Chobe Brahmin, and later Sanatan Goswami discovered this beautiful deity and it became his Ishtadev. When Advaita Acharya saw the degraded condition of the living entities in Kali Yuga, he realized that the Yuga Dharma needed to be established, and only the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, Krishna, could do so. Even though Advaita Acharya was the Supreme Lord also, being an incarnation of the Supreme Lord, he saw himself as a menial servant, just as Lord Nityananda, from whom his identity arises, also sees himself as a servant of the Lord rather than as a Supreme Lord. Therefore, with great humility and great love, he worshipped the Shaligram form of the Lord with tulsi leaves and Ganga jal, and he cried piteously to the Supreme Lord to avenge himself and save the souls of Kali Yuga. It is said that these cries were able to pierce the covering of the universe and reach the ears of Krishna, and therefore he descended as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Although Advaita Acharya is actually very senior to Lord Chaitanya by birth and also by initiation, in that Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master is Madhavendra Puri, and Madhavendra Puri initiated Ishvara Puri, who initiated Lord Chaitanya. Advaita Acharya always saw himself as a menial servant of Lord Chaitanya. But because of the great respect that Lord Chaitanya was giving him as a senior, Advaita Acharya had an internal reason for the following pastime. He actually began to teach some impersonalist philosophy to some souls at his place. And this enraged Lord Chaitanya so much because he was so against the impersonalist philosophy, which was his one of the reasons that he came to this world to defeat this philosophy, that he actually went to Advaita Acharya and he beat him quite severely, chastising him for such a philosophy, saying that you had called me to this world in order to stop the impersonalist philosophy, and here you are propagating it. Although it appeared as if he was very angry, he was, of course, just emphasizing how important it is for us not to even playfully hear impersonalist philosophy. And externally, he appeared angry, but externally, Advaita Acharya was joyful because he felt that the Lord was now properly treating him as a servant and not a master. And this was his desire in his humility. Another important pastime that was related to Advaita Acharya happened in relation to Sachimata. Her elder son Vishwarup, as we mentioned, would go to Advaita Acharya and hear scripture and eventually ended up taking sannyas. And this upset Sachi Devi so much, she considered Advaita Acharya responsible for this. Thus, when Lord Chaitanya, her younger son, started going to Advaita Acharya's house and listening to philosophy and having Sankirtan again, she was very concerned that the same thing would happen. Thus, she actually offended Advaita Acharya by blaming him for breaking up families. This upset Lord Chaitanya so much that when he displayed his divine potencies at the house of Srivas Thakur, he refused to show mercy to Sachi Devi until she fell at the feet of Advaita Acharya and apologized. In this divine Leela, Lord Chaitanya was demonstrating that one should never commit offenses to Vaishnavas. Even his own mother was not forgiven by him until she got forgiveness from Advaita Acharya. After Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, Lord Nityananda, as we said, brought Lord Chaitanya back to Bengal, to the home of Advaita Acharya, in order for him to have some closure with his mother and with the residents of Navadvip, and to settle his residence in Jagannath Puri. Advaita Acharya used to also attend the Rath Yatra festival there yearly with the associates of Lord Chaitanya from Navadvip, and engaged in many wonderful pastimes with the Lord. And of course, he continued his preaching in Navadvip on the Lord's order. Advaita Acharya disappeared in the year 1559 at the age of 125 years. So Srila Prabhupada says that for those who are following in the line of Lord Nityananda and Advaita Acharya, their particular rasas or the relationships that they have with the Lord are that of either the parental love, fraternal love as in good friends, that of servitude and neutrality, like Krishna's cows, his the trees, and the flute, for example. But when it comes to those who are in Madhurya Ras, the rasa of conjugal love with Krishna, they come under the shelter of Gadadhar Pandit. And this is because Gadadhar Pandit, who is the fourth member of the Panchatattva that we will discuss today, he is actually Srimati Radharani. So it's a little esoteric to understand, but Srimati Radharani not only gave her mood and her complexion to Lord Chaitanya for him to relish, but then what was left of her, she appeared as Gadadhar Pandit in order to participate in the Lord's pastimes. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said, the devotees headed by Gadadhar Pandit are to be considered incarnations of the internal potency of the Lord. They are confidential devotees engaged in the service of the Lord. The internal devotees or potencies are all eternal associates in the pastimes of the Lord. Only with them does the Lord advent to propound the Sankirtan movement. Only with them does the Lord taste the mellow of conjugal love, and only with them does he distribute this love of God to people in general. So others who are in this rasa of conjugal love are like Swarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Rai, who also went to Jagannath Puri with Lord Chaitanya, and when he was experiencing his most deepest ecstasies in the mood of Srimati Radharani, they were there with him so that they would be able to facilitate his enjoyment of these mellows. So Gadadhar Pandit appeared about a year after Lord Chaitanya in 1457 on the new moon day in the month of Vaishak. His father's name was Madhava Mishra and his mother's name was Sri Ratnavati Devi. So right from childhood, Garai, as Gadadhar Pandit was known, and Nimai, as Lord Chaitanya was known, were inseparable. They were the very best of friends, and they lived near each other in Hampitam. Even though they were very close childhood playmates, they were so different in their personalities. Gadadhar Pandit was peaceful, renounced, serious. He preferred keeping to himself and was very self-composed. But Lord Chaitanya was the exact opposite. He was described as fickle, unsteady, and whimsical, and he delighted in teasing Gadadhar Pandit at the school they attended, which was Gangadas Pandit's Tola. Lord Chaitanya would always tease Gadadhar Pandit by challenging theological questions. Of course, Lord Chaitanya would always win in any debate because of Gadadhar Pandit's great love. As it is described that Radha would dress Krishna, Gadadhar Pandit will also dress the radiant form of Lord Chaitanya. He would decorate the Lord's room and bed with flowers, and he would always grind chandan cakes for the Lord every day. When Lord Chaitanya started the Sankirtan movement, his mood changed completely, and he was so absorbed in love of Godhead, and Gadadhar Pandit became his constant companion. Sometimes in these deep ecstasies, only Gadadhar Pandit would be able to calm Lord Chaitanya down. Once, when Gadadhar Pandit brought some pan for Lord Chaitanya, he was so absorbed in thinking of Krishna that he asked Gadadhar Pandit, where is this beautiful dark-skinned boy with the yellow garments. So Gadara Pandit thought carefully and said to Lord Chaitanya, he is in your heart. Lord Chaitanya was so much in ecstasy of thinking of Krishna that he began to scratch at his chest with his nails. And Gadara Pandit quickly grabbed his hands. Lord Chaitanya said, I have to find Krishna. So therefore he was scratching at his own heart. So Gadara Pandit thought about it carefully and said, just be a little patient and calm down. Krishna will come any minute. At this, Lord Chaitanya was able to compose himself. Sashi Mata was a little distance away, but she was aware of this conversation. And she was very pleased with Gadara Pandit, thinking that although he is just a boy, he's very intelligent. He is able to calm down Lord Chaitanya in these moods, whereas Sachi Devi herself was very afraid to go near Lord Chaitanya with explicit of love of God. So she said to Gadara Pandit, you must always remain with Nimai. If you stay with him, then I won't have to worry. One day when Lord Chaitanya was wandering in the banks of the Ganges, he sat down in a forest grove and he immersed himself, thinking about his Vrindavan pastimes. At that time, because of his deep mood, his associates came to enhance that. They sang sweet kirtan. Gadara Pandit sat on one side of him, Lord Nityananda sat on the other side of him. Srivas Pandit decorated them with flowers, and Advaitacharya offered arti, and thus the Lord was able to enjoy remembering his Vrindavan pastimes. So Gadara Pandit accepted Sri Pundarik Vidyanidhi as his spiritual master, and he also took sannyas when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. And like Lord Chaitanya went to Jagannath Puri, he also went to Jagannath Puri and took the vow of Kshetra sannyas, meaning that he would never leave the dham. He took up the service of the beautiful Tota Gopinath deity, whom he served with great love and devotion. And his readings of Srimad Bhagavatam was so deep and rasik that Lord Chaitanya would come and hear them. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eventually disappeared by merging into the deity of Tota Gopinath. Even though Gadara Pandit was a little near 48 years old when Lord Chaitanya disappeared, he aged immediately out of deep anguish and separation from the Lord. It was so bad that he couldn't even raise his arms up to garland his and serve his Lord. Tota Gopinath, the deity, was aware of the deep pain that his devotee was in. Therefore, he did something quite extraordinary. He sat down in order to receive Gadara Pandit's association. And to this day, he is the only deity that is actually in sitting posture. It is said that shortly after Lord Chaitanya's disappearance, Gadara Pandit also disappeared, and also disappeared by merging into the Tota Gopinath deity. His Danta or Tooth Samadhi is near the Vamsi Gopal temple in Vrindavan. So the last of the Panchatattva is Srivas Thakur, who is an incarnation of Narad Muni, as we mentioned. So as we had described, the Lord's three Vishnu Tattva forms are himself as Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, who is his expansion, Lord Advaitacharya, who is his incarnation, and then his energies, so his two Shaktis are Gadara Pandit and Srivas Thakur. So whereas Gadara Pandit is his internal energy, Srimati Radharani, Srivas Thakur is his marginal energy, or Jiva Tattva. So he represents us, and he represents how we can transform to pure devotees and serve the Lord. So Srivas Thakur appeared in Navadvip Dham on the 8th day of the dark half of the month of Chaitra. And he was also, like Advaitacharya, older than Lord Chaitanya. He led his brothers Sri Ram, Sri Nidhi, and Sripati in deep devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And they used to associate with Advaitacharya and gather together to pray for the Supreme Lord's appearance in the material world. His wife was known as Malini Devi, and she was a very dear friend of Sachi Devi, such that she got to serve Lord Chaitanya as a nurse when he appeared finally. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered Srivas Thakur and Malini Devi as a second mother and father. So the home of Srivas Thakur, called Srivas Angan, was the site of the beginning of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan pastimes in Navadvip. They actually became his Sankirtan headquarters. They're described as about 200 yards north of Lord Chaitanya's house, with very comfortable rooms, a high wall, so offered seclusion, beautiful gardens and groves, where the Lord could relish Sankirtan with his closest associates. So in this garden, it is described that the constables of the Chankazi came and broke the Mridanga. Although the Chankazi was very angry about the Sankirtan movement in Navadvip, haven't been informed by the smarter Brahmins who were very jealous of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This enraged this Chankazi to not only order his constables to break the Madangas, but also to declare that if anybody engaged in Sankirtan, they would be converted to Islam and have all their property taken away. So, of course, Srivas Thakur was so dedicated to Supreme Lord that he had no fear of this. Sankirtan movement, we know, continued. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu organized the first civil disobedience march against the Chankazi and eventually convinced him about the authenticity of the Sankirtan movement. And Chankazi listened to his orders. Um, Within the compound of Srivas Anand, Lord Chaitanya displayed many extraordinary pastimes. He displayed many of his forms, like Lord Simha, Siksam, Sadbuj form. And here also, Srivas Thakur and others were able to offer great worship to the Lord and receive his mercy. They would not only have wonderful kirtans, but they would also discuss Srimad Bhagavatam and the Lord's pastimes. The Sankirtan was so meaningful to them that even though during one Sankirtan, one evening, Srivas Thakur's son passed away. He forbade the women of the house to actually mourn because he wanted that Lord Chaitanya would be able to enjoy the holy name of the Lord without hearing about the grief in the house. However, the Lord was very perceptive, and he asked after the Sankirtan, something must have happened here because my mood is not the same as usual. And this is when Srivas Thakur told him that actually his son had passed away. And at this point, Lord Chaitanya told him that Lord Nityananda and him, Lord Chaitanya, would always be the sons of Srivas Thakur and Malini. It's a great benediction that he gave to them. So these wonderful nocturnal pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Srivas Thakur's house, they elicited various responses from the people of Navadvip. There were a lot of envious people, a lot of envious Brahmins in particular. So we heard how they had complained to the Chankazi, and others had reacted in other envious ways. We know about Gopal Chapala, who was so upset at not being able to be a part of these Sankirtans that he put all the paraphernalia for worshipping Durga Devi outside Srivas Thakur's home to make it seem as if he was pretending to be a Vaishnava but engaging in other pujas. Of course, Srivas Thakur was not at all concerned about this. Instead, he just called all his neighbors, declared that there was an attempt to defame him, at which everybody understood that that there was no way he could be engaging in such things. And they just cleared up all of the paraphernalia. But that unfortunate Gopal Chapala was inflicted with leprosy. Even when he prayed to Lord Chaitanya for forgiveness, the Lord refused to cure him and instead told him that he should ask for forgiveness from Srivas Thakur. Only when he did that was he cured. Then there was the Brahmin who was allowed into the Sankirtan pastimes in the evening because he was so austere in his habits. He would only live on milk and bananas. But he was not a pure devotee of the Lord, and he was not relishing the Sankirtan pastimes the way he should have. And Lord Chaitanya immediately detected that there was an impostor in the place. So when he was being escorted out, he understood that all of his austerities didn't mean anything wasn't uh, um, if he was being escorted out, and this feeling of being unqualified was actually what made him qualified by the Lord's estimation to be there. Then to conclude, there's a very significant pastime about another Brahmin who wasn't allowed entrance into the Sankirtan pastimes, and he confronted Lord Chaitanya, and he cursed the Lord that you will be bereft of material happiness. Of course, we know that this was by the Lord's own arrangement because using the pretext of this curse, the Lord was able to take sannyas and thus distribute the holy name to so many more people than he could have if he remained in Navadvip. So these were some of the wonderful pastimes that I thought we could discuss today. Thank you all so much for your kind attention while we dived into the nectar of these pastimes. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Are there any questions from anyone that I can try and answer?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thanks for the lovely class. Very well, thank you. I just want to add a little as well. You see,
Yes.
from the associates, those are the eternal associates that you got of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the ones that you discussed are basically is like his direct extensions. But then when it comes to the others as well, they are really amazing as well. Like for example, Rupa Goswami was Rupa Manjari in the Vrindavan pastimes. And Sanatana Goswami is Rati Manjari. And Ramananda Rai is actually Arjuna. So the Lord's associates, he takes his associates wherever he goes. So he is enjoying his pastime with associates all the time.
Absolutely.
So in this case, and also his mother is also Mother Yashoda. His father is Nanda Maharaj. So they all, the eternal associates of Lord Chaitanya is not just like a once-off thing. He takes them with him wherever he goes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for that, Prabhu.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the wonderful class. Thank you so much, Mataji. Really wonderful. Thank you so much. So much information. Thank you.
Thank you again, service.
Yeah. Mataji begins to ask Roger Wat Prabhu. Roger Wat Prabhu, is there any comments from your side? Any questions?
Hare Krishna. No, I don't have any. I don't have any questions. That was very well presented. A lot of information again, and as always, the way it comes across is very, very well placed, very, very well laid out. So thank you very much, Mataji.
Thank you for all the mercy of Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, and thank you for the topic. You inspired us this week.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much to Sankash and Prabhu for his input. Bhaktin Kadura for Mataji, is there any comments or questions from your side?
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for wonderful class and amazing pastimes. Mataji, I have one question. Why in the next incarnation, Krishna, Balaram are opposite, one elder and the other younger, and after it's opposite?
Okay, so we know that Lord Balaram is an expansion of Krishna, and so previously he had appeared like the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra, for example, happened before the pastimes of Lord Krishna and the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. So in the Ram Leela, Lord Balaram had come as a younger brother, obviously being an expansion, as Lakshman, and Ram was the elder brother, Krishna. So in that pastime, it is said that Lakshman was greatly aggrieved that Ram had to accept that exile by his stepmother, and he had to go through so much difficulties when he was in the forest. And then we know Sita Devi was kidnapped, and he had to go through the whole ordeal of a war with Ravan in order to rescue her. Then, after 14 years, come back home and get back his kingdom. So, if it was up to Lakshman, this never would have happened. He would have simply just sorted out the matter with KK and Bharat, and Lord Ram wouldn't have had to go through all of that. So it's said that when Lord Krishna was coming to this world, that Lakshman requested this time to be the elder brother, and so he would have some kind of say in what would happen to Krishna, so that the Lord wouldn't have to put himself through anything like what happened previously. Basically, Lord Balaram wanted to be the protective one, because he is always trying to make sure that Krishna is comfortable and has the best of everything. And so he enjoyed this role of being the elder brother Balaram so much that he also appeared as the older brother Nityananda in this Gaura Leela as well. Is that okay?
Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you very much. Wonderful class, wonderful kirtan. My dandavan pranams to you.
I pronounce to you. Any more questions?
I think we're
Just a
okay. I
point
think we're
though.
okay, Mataji. Thank you.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make a point that it's actually said that Vishwarup, who appeared as Lord Chaitanya's older brother by birth in Navadvip, he actually merged into Lord Nityananda when he disappeared after his taking sannyas. So this is how Lord Nityananda is considered the older brother of Lord Chaitanya.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, thank you so much. If you don't mind, if we can have some kirtan, we will look forward to in your next class again. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Not at all. So we're going to sing. Let's share the screen. Okay, so this bhajan is by Lochan Das Thakur and it's called Sri Krishna Parama Karuna. Sorry. Parama Karuna Kahu Dvijana Nitai Dora Chandra Parama Karuna Kahu Dvijana Nitai Dora Chandra Sapadatara Sarishramani Keva Sabhavatara Sarishramani Keva Bhajo Bhajo Bhai Chaitanya Vishwasya Kori Bhajo Bhajo Bhai Chaitanya Vishwasya Kori Ishaya Chariya Sera Simajia Mukhe Bolo Hari Hari Ishaya Chariya Sera Simajia Mukhe Bolo Hari Hari Dekho re bhai Tribhuvane Nai Mono Doyal Dasa Dekho re bhai Tribhuvane Nai Mono Doyal Dasa Pashu Paki Chure Pashna Vidare Shuni Jan Gunata Pashu Paki Chure Pashna Vidare Shuni Jan Gunata Sansari Majia Rohini Puriya Devare Nahiro Asha Sansare Maria Rohini Puriya Devare Nahiro Asha Apna Karma Gunjaya Shamana Sabore Lochan Apna karma gunjay shamna kahoe lochan parama kaharuna bahudvijana nitai gaurachanda parama karuna bahudvijana Nitai Gora Chandra Nitai Gora Hari Nitai Gora Hari Gora Hari Nitai Gora Hari Nitai Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Shri Shantai Gaur Hari Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Shantai Govind Mande, Hari Hari Bol. So we'll read the translation. The two lords, Nitai Gaura Chandra, are very merciful. They are the essence of all incarnations. The specific significance of these incarnations is that they introduced a process of chanting and dancing that is simply joyful. My dear brother, I request that you just worship Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda with firm conviction and faith. If one wants to be Krishna conscious by this process, one has to give up his engagement in sense gratification. One simply has to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Hare without any motive. My dear brother, just try and examine this. Within the three worlds, there is no one like Lord Chaitanya or Lord Nityananda. Their merciful qualities are so great that upon hearing them, even birds and beasts cry, stones melt. But Lochandas regrets that I am entrapped by sense gratification. Since I have no attraction for the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, then Yamaraj, the superintendent of death, is punishing me by not allowing me to be attracted by this movement. Chandas Thakur ki jai. Okay. So thank you again so much for giving me the opportunity to serve by diving into mindful pastimes. I hope that you all relish them as much as I did. Thank you again. Keep up. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki